Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and today we're doing a different type of install for the channel. Today we're going to be installing automatic aftermarket door locks on this Jeep Patriot. Now in this install we're going to show you what kit we're going to use and how we're going to install this to 4 doors that have manual locks on this Jeep. Now this install is going to require us to pull all 4 door panels, run a bit of wiring, but in the end it allows us to convert these manual locks around the car to an automatic system. Let's get started. Now the kit that we've decided to go with is just more of a universal kit. We can throw the information down in the description of the video for you, but essentially here what this kit includes is, first and foremost, you got your main brain box here. This is going to control everything. It's also the receiver for your keyless entry. In addition to that, you're going to have 4 actuators. Now you're going to have 2 for the rear doors, and then we have our 2 front door actuators. Now the front driver's side door is going to be the one with all the wiring that's coming out of it. So there's our 4 main actuators. Really, you can use them anywhere except this one has to be your main one, and generally speaking this is going to be your driver's side front door. Finally, we have a huge wiring loom here. This also includes your main harness that'll plug into the brain box, as well as power, ground. It's already pre-fused, everything that you'll need to make this work. Finally, it comes with your mounting hardware. Now before we get started, it does come with some sort of manual. It is literally a 1-pager here, but it does identify what color wire goes where. There's not a lot of manual wiring because essentially here it just needs to hook to power and ground. It does kind of walk through a step-by-step on how to operate the buttons here. Let's head over to the car and start pulling door panels. Alright, so we're here at the car. Now the first thing we need to do is gain access to the rod that controls the lock here on the door, because we're going to be connecting our kit to this lock. For your car specifically, if you do have necessity to pull the door panel off like most cars probably would, be sure to do that. In this case, all we need to do is pull off the crank and this panel. Okay, so what I like to do is I just kind of push the door panel back, and you're going to see a little pin in there, or a little clip that goes through that piece. It basically sandwiches on. It's on there, and then the clip goes on this piece here. When you remove that piece, this comes on out. And then when we put this back on, same thing, we're going to put this in its place and slip this clip between those 2 grooves on each side of the handle here. Now we need to remove a T25 Torx in the grab here, and there may be a little cover up and over that screw. So what we're going to do is use this flathead to pop this piece out. Now it's just a little cover with clips on both sides. Now we have a panel tool. This panel tool is going to allow us to kind of get underneath these panels here without scratching the plastic. Okay, now you notice here is the rod that connects and controls the lock itself. This is what we're going to be installing our actuator to. Let's go ahead and grab our kit and begin installing our actuator. Alright, so with this door panel off and ready to go, we started kind of mocking up the way that we want to attach our actuator here in the door. Essentially, you are just using the back strapping that came with the actuator, and you're using it as a kind of a clamp. And what we're going to do is, instead of drilling into this plastic, we use that back strapping and we put a 2-inch bolt through it with a nut on the end, and we bolted it. So we didn't actually screw it. And we went ahead and then from that point hooked our rod into the actuator itself and ran it up. It was a little long, so we had to trim it down a little bit. But then we used these little clips that come with the kit itself. And the single side goes along the rod, and then the double side screw goes along the locking and unlocking mechanism within the door itself, and then we've screwed that down so it's nice and tight. Now I wanted to go ahead and test it for clearance to make sure, as we use the handle, that it doesn't rub on the boot. I want to make sure it's functioning properly before we start running all the wires through the door boot into the inside of the car. So what I've actually done is hooked up power and ground to our test bench here. So go ahead and grab our key fob. Right now it's in the unlock position. So we hit lock. You can see it actuate down. Unlock. Just like so. That seems to work for us. What we're going to do now at this point, since we know this is working, we're going to disconnect our wiring here. And we got to run it through the door boot here. Now this is a pretty difficult part just because we got to run all 5 of these wires, and we're going to put our brain box kind of here behind this panel so it's serviceable, and it's not super buried down in the kick panel to give our key fob a little bit better reception. So we're going to go ahead and get that mounted there. So the next thing we need to do is pop this boot out and start running all our cable. We started pulling the boot apart here. Now we got a flathead screwdriver and push these tabs in because this is clipped into the body here. And this will come out. We pull the rubber boot off and unplug the 2 harnesses. Fortunately though, if you look, there's some space on the side of the harness. That's going to allow us to run our wiring through into the door panel. Then we'll fish it through the boot here. Now on this end, we do have 2 Torx screws that we need to remove so we can get in this side of the boot. That'll give us the passage we need then to run our wiring to the door lock actuator here. So as we pop this out, we ran our main harness through that. So as this pops in this way, you can see it goes in, it'll come out this end. We ran it in through the rubber grommet, and we just used a zip tie to help fish it through. And we had to pull this out, pull this back so we can see where the wires come through. Fish it through this, which goes into the door panel here, and there it came through. Ran it along into our junction there. Everything zip tied into our actuator. So that was a pain, but now I have fished the rest of my wire up into the cabin here. It comes down below. We have our wiring here, which we'll plug in. So this goes into the module. We have our miscellaneous connections down here, and then our blue and green wires are the ones that run to the doors. Now there's these 2 that are the longest, and I just threw them over there just to keep them out of the way, but those are for the passenger side front and rear doors, and this one is the driver's side rear door. They're all various lengths. So this is our main harness that'll go to the brain box, which will fish up probably into this pocket, and we'll mount it on this flat space. And then this device requires power and ground, which will probably go up to the fuse box underneath the hood. We probably don't need to pull a negative all the way up there. We'll just ground it here inside. The negative is a shorter black wire that just can go to the body of the Jeep. So that's kind of where we are. What we're going to do next is we're going to fish this wire up into this cavity here. We're going to put together this whole mess that we've pulled apart here just to run a couple of wires. And once this is all back and reassembled, we'll start running wire to the battery and then start running our lengths to each door. Reassembled this is all back as it originally was. Got the weather seal all back in. Everything's nice and tidy there. We just need to put on our bezel that goes over here. But really the driver's side door is done. We ran our wire up into here. It's not plugged in yet. We're just getting all the lengths mapped out first. We made our ground. The black wire on this unit is a ground. So what we did is used just a good wire wheel and clean that up there, and used a self tapper and put a ring terminal and put our ground. So our ground is all complete. So that's good to go. We ran our driver's side rear door line there, and we pulled this back here just to prep running here because the door jamb is going to be the same as the front door. All of them are going to be the same, and I've wrapped all of our wiring there in electrical tape. We're going to run this up underneath over the transmission tunnel to the other side, and then along the kick panel as well. Now let's show you how we're going to run power. The fuse box, that's probably the best case scenario to run to, is actually underneath the hood. So the way that we've gotten through as we went ahead and went through the grommet that's in the fender. The main harness goes through the fender and not through the actual bulkhead itself. Pull this out, we'll get you inside here. So if we look up, there is our main grommet that goes into the engine bay. So what we did is we have about 6 feet of this yellow 18 gauge wire. We poked a hole through that grommet and fished the wire inside the cabin, which will show you where it comes out on the other end. And we fished that up through the fender here, and we fished it out all the way to this point, and we put some split loom on it so it's nice and protected in the fender. Opening up the fuse panel itself, we drilled a little hole through there so we can still maintain a seal. We don't want to put a hole in the top because then water will go down onto the board itself, and we don't want that. So we did it up underneath this lip just to get a little bit more protection. And this right here is called an ADA circuit. An ADA circuit allows you to tap into an existing circuit while adding your own. Now this doesn't add an extra load on that circuit. What this does is it allows you to add your own circuit and your own fuse on your own line while maintaining the original circuit and its original fuse. So we went into this one here, which is a constant source. We want this unit to be powered on even with the car is off, because obviously you want to unlock and lock your car while the car is off. This is on a constant circuit. We crimped it, it goes right through there, and what this will do is hide just right up underneath. Nice thing is that'll clip on just like so. Pull up our split loom there, and that's basically all you'll see up underneath the hood. So where this goes from the inside, it's just the other end of that wire, and you'll notice it just comes through right back here. We fished it out, so that's the other end. And we tapped it into the positive side of our brain module. So at this point, we can actually do a test here on the front door. So we'll hit lock, and lock, and it works great. We're currently working on the other side, which we'll show you here in a minute. But all our wiring is all done. That's really it for this corner of the car. So let's head over to the passenger side. Now, as we've run the wire to the passenger side, we actually just ran it underneath the carpet here. We just tucked it nice and low up and over the transmission tunnel there. Okay, so we finished up the passenger side. Same exact process going through the grommet here, just up inside. You work your way through, comes out here. Just a mirror image of how we mounted the actuator from the other side as well. Again, you want to make sure it clears, doesn't get all bound up or rub on the boot here. Plugged in our harness. Again, it goes all the way through. Let's do a quick little test here. Lock, unlock, perfect. Now, as I prepare to put this back on, I prep the clip just like that. I don't slide it all the way on, and basically get this oriented the way that I want. Once I slide that on, then I'll get a flathead screwdriver and push the clip off. All right, so here we are to the back doors. Now, we need to also pull off this center panel here. Same kind of process as the front doors. We do need to start with the crank. Make sure you catch it, you can't lose this. There's the clip. Again, we have a little cover over a screw that we need to pop off. Then the same process, using a panel tool, we need to pop the panel free. Gives us plenty of space to go ahead and mount our actuator. Now I have found that this position right there seems to work the best. I'll get you in a little bit closer so you can see it, but we need to connect the door piece right here. It's really hard to get back behind this panel to get to the base of this, so instead we're going to connect onto this, do more of a horizontal instead of an up and down attachment, and it should work fine. Okay, so we got our actuator all mounted there, and my kit came short of 3 screws. Imagine that. So I found 3 that will thread in there. Essentially here, that's where it hooks on. I didn't have to trim the back one, so I had plenty of space, but seems to work good. So now we need to get electrical to it. We pop this back off, and we need to make it through this plug. Now this plug also has a harness here and a grommet that goes up through this little portion. Super difficult, kind of like the front. So what we need to do is pull this out, as well as unplug this harness. There's going to be the 2 Torx holding it on. We're going to pull back the weather stripping as well, just give us plenty of access to work. All right, so we popped out this end. There's a tab in the top here and a tab at the bottom. You just press those in so this can come out. And then I've disconnected the harness there. Now this side, we pull out the 2 T15 Torx, kind of just pull this out. And on the back here, we actually have a secondary grommet. This does come out to give us a little bit more access to run wire. So with this all apart, now the tricky thing about this side is there's no space to slip a wire through this harness. Neither is there on this side. So what we're gonna do, now this is totally up to you. Just remember that once you drill, you're committed. But there's a ton of empty pinholes here that we can drill just a hair bigger. And same thing on the matching side, where we can slip these wires through the harness, through the female end, through the grommet, into the cap, so we don't have wires just hanging out. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we're going to show you how we're going to do it. Again, it's totally up to you. You take the responsibility for drilling through these plugs here, but this is an alternative to just having wires hanging out in the door jamb. Okay, so drilled through those 2 empty ports here, go through the back there, and on the matching side, to the exact same matching ports. So with that done, now what we're gonna do is run our wire, each wire through one of those ports that we drilled, through the whole harness, and we'll show you what that looks like. There you go. So the green and the blue are mine. Come right out there, just like so. I'll feed them through the other end. Okay, so there that fed through the other end, and we'll pull the slack out and connect the harness. Okay, so with everything going through there, I fished the wire just with my hands through the grommet here, came out here, fished up through this, then into the door panel right down there. And so at this point, everything's run. Now we need to reassemble this. Okay, got this center section all back together there. I just got to reattach the weather stripping. Now, since I had to cut the wire in order to fit it through the harness, I reattached it using butt connectors, and they crimped them really well. Now you may notice, oh, you got your wire colors backwards. Well, since we have the orientation a different way, and since it's pushing to lock it instead of pulling, just because the way we have this set up, if you have it the other way, it'll pop backwards as a instead of the other door. So before you put it back together, make sure you test it to make sure that the way you have it wired will work, because if you have it backwards, then this will lock while the other ones unlock and vice versa. So with that being said, let's go ahead and give this a test here. Lock, unlock, perfect, works great. So we're gonna finish lumen up our wire here. We'll get it zip tied out of the way so it doesn't get in the way of our lifting crank, and we'll finish putting together our panel. Before we reassemble the panel, I want to show you what the other side looks like. Same principle, got that all hooked up. Again, the wiring colors are reversed, but got that all buttoned up there. Everything works on this side as well. We tested it all. Let's go ahead and reassemble this panel. All right, so with all the door panels all reassembled, good to go. The last thing we need to do is attach this. Now we used some double-sided tape and mounted our brain box here, and then ran the antenna up here just so it has a little bit better reception instead of just being enclosed in this box. And bundle the additional wire here. With this model, we're not going to hook up the flashlights, but you can if you want. We pulled the fuse out just to be safe, so those wires aren't live. But everything else will fold and tuck away back behind this panel. That's about it for this install. Turned out great. Locks and unlocks. Perfect. All right, well, that's about it. Be sure to check the description. We'll have the link to the kit that we used, or at least the part number for you. Be sure to hit that like button if you like what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel here all the time. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.